Hello everybody, welcome to Arts and Crafts with Steve McDonald. New videos every Sunday and sometimes midweek. Please like, comment and subscribe.
Hello everybody, today I'm going to be doing a top tips and tricks for creating resin art for beginners. Now, I would consider myself a beginner. I've been learning over the last couple of months, and when I first started I found it quite difficult to find out what sort of stuff there was out there and what I should be using really. So this is a video on that, and then I will do a quick resin picture at the end as well. So obviously the first things you need to start with is resin, and there's so many different types of resin out there that you can use. Now there's polyester resin, which is that one underneath the respirator mask, and then there's epoxy resin here that you can also use. Now let's go back to the polyester resin. Polyester resin is quite a good resin. It is a little bit more fragile than epoxy resin, so if you cast something and you drop it, then it will break. As an example, I cast some coasters. Here's one of the coasters I cast. I cast some in epoxy resin and I cast some in polyester resin. I dropped one of the polyester resin ones on the floor and it broke. The other thing is, it doesn't take alcohol inks as a colour very well, so you need to be using things like mica or special ink dyes for polyester resin. The other main issue with polyester resin is it absolutely stinks. It stinks out your studio or wherever you're working, and it can be hazardous to health. So you definitely will need to use a respirator similar to this. Once that's on, then you can't smell anything through it. It completely gets rid of it. And that respirator, as is everything on this table, is available from Amazon. I will put the links up. Now there are some videos on my channel with me using the clear casting resin from Amazon, which is the polyester resin, and I'll put the card above. Also with polyester resin, particularly the one I've got here, the clear casting resin, it is quite useful for casting small pieces of jewellery, and once it's cured and given quite a few days after curing, the smell does go away. So then we're moving on to craft resin, this one here. It comes in two parts, A and B, and it's a 1-to-1 mixture, so equal amounts of each that you stir up. And this is really quite a good casting resin. So again, if you want to use it, you don't have to use the mask with it, but if you want to use it, you can use it for casting pieces. Now it's very liquidy. I wouldn't necessarily use it for resin painting because it is quite runny. But it is self-leveling, it's got no VOCs in it, it's non-toxic, and it does have quite a lot of UV protection in it. So then we're moving on to the clear artwork and casting resin. So master cast, again this is 1-to-1. This is probably one of the more economical ones to buy, far more economical than the art resin that you can see there. I've got 4 kilos there, and I think that was about £115. So what's that, about $135, $145. Again, I got that from Amazon Prime was with me the next day, and I'll be using that for very small casting, so anything less than 5mm deep. If it's more than that, then I would have to layer it, but I'll be using that for resin painting, and that's the one I'll be using later today in this video. So then moving on to art resin. Art resin is a great resin. I have no problems with it whatsoever. The only thing is, it is very expensive. I think 2 gallons of this is nearly £200. So when you're playing around and you're testing and you're learning, I wouldn't necessarily go for art resin because of the price of it. So there's the resins. Now there are, like I said, some things that you will need. And all these things again come from Amazon. So firstly is some stirrer sticks. That's just lolly sticks. You can buy them very cheaply on Amazon. I use 2 different sizes. I've got the larger, wider ones if I'm mixing up a larger volume, or I've got the smaller ones if I'm mixing up a smaller volume. Then you would need some disposable gloves. Absolutely essential. You can buy a pack of 100 of those, and I keep them near me all the time, as you can see. There's the box of gloves there. Now I've got medium, I haven't got massive hands, and actually I wish I'd bought large, but they do get on there, they're quite stretchy. Some eye protection, because you don't want to be getting any of this in your eyes at all. I wear glasses all the time, so I don't necessarily wear the eye protection with it, but if I didn't wear glasses and I had my contacts in, I certainly would be putting some eye protection on. Some mixing and measuring cups. There's some small ones there for small amounts, and there's some larger ones there. Now they do have measurements down the side, and you do need to be accurate as possible when mixing these things, because if you don't have enough hardener in them or the right amounts in, it won't cure properly. I also use small shot glasses to transfer some of the clear liquid in to add colours and texture to it. So I use mica powders and different things, so I'll show you that. So I've got mica powders here, and again they're lovely, they're really luminescent, they give a real quite metallic colour to them. Now as you can see in mine here, I've got them all coloured with labels on the colours, because I am actually very colour blind, so when I look at them I don't know what I'm looking at. I also use glitter. I put glitter in some of them as well. That helps to colour it and give it a nice effect. And underneath there is just another pack of micas, again all labelled. It is useful having them labelled anyway. You'll need some moulds if you're doing castings. These here are capuchon moulds. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. And the great thing about those is you can cast them in clear resin, let them dry, take them out of the silicone mould, and it must always be silicone mould, because if not it's hard to get them out. So, and then what you do is you then can use that on some of your runoff, which is really pretty. Can you hear my doggy barking out there? Let's go and see what she's doing. She's deaf, so I can't shout at her. She's probably barking at our poor cat. There's the cat, bless her, bless him, and there's Lily, our little deaf labradoodle. She's only a year old. Can you stop barking, please? Not that she can hear me. Sorry about that. So, as I said, so the silicone moulds, this is my studio that we're in now. The silicone moulds are great, and you can get them where you can do solid triangles and put bits and pieces in, coasters, virtually anything that you want. But I do use these. I make like little stones, then I dip them in the overflow of the resin, and then you're not wasting a lot of resin, and you've got something that you can make some jewellery out of. Now to colour my alcohol, my resin, apart from the polyester resin, I don't use these for polyester resin, I use alcohol inks, okay, I use acrylic paints, and again I use the mica or the glitter, and I will be showing you that in a minute. And then moving around some of the other tools I use a heat gun to be able to heat up the resin, get rid of some of the bubbles, and actually move it around to create a different pattern. I find that's really useful because you will get bubbles in your resin, and it does spoil the look of it if you don't get them out. The other thing I use is it's just a small torch I got off the internet, and it's a chef's torch, and it was about £14. I use that, but you need to go over it very, very quickly, which I will show you again in the video, to ensure that you don't overheat your resin and scorch it, and or set it afire, because obviously if it's got alcohol in it, it could catch alight. But I've never had that happen to me yet. But what I would say is, do not use that with the clear casting polyester resin, because it catches fire so quickly. Now this resin here is supposed to be the craft resin is supposed to be bubble free, and I've used it quite a lot, and actually I wouldn't say it's bubble free because that would be a fib, but I would say it virtually is bubble free. And one of the tips or the tricks that I would suggest you use is, and I would suggest that with any of the epoxy resins, is before you use it, before you mix it up, actually heat them up. And I just run a sink full of really quite hot water. Whatever I've put them in, I pop them in, so the hot water, so for instance if I fill that up with the resin that needs to be mixed, so I'd put resin in this one, then I'd have another one for the hardener, I put them in the water like that, for probably about 5 minutes. It heats the resin up quite a lot. It mixes up so much easier, but also it allows the colours to mix in it easier, and it does prevent quite a lot of the bubbles. So when we use it, what do we use? So I use canvas, I use MDF boards that I buy online. I bought some coaster shapes. They're here. Let me show you those. They were very, very reasonably priced if you want to make coasters. But mostly if I'm doing a picture, I use what's called canvas board, and I buy these online and I think they're 3 for about £3.50. Now make sure that you are level, whatever you're working on, because you don't want the resin running over the edges, okay, or all pooling up in one corner. So I have a little level and I make sure it's level, and I always prop mine up. I use this white plastic tray underneath to catch any drips, to keep my work surface as clean as I possibly can. And actually I just use, these are Angel Delight pots or pudding cup pots. They're all the same size. I put that on there, that gives it space to run off, and then I just check it's level. The other tips and tricks I would say is don't spend a lot of money on resin dyes, because there is a lot out there. You can even use eyeshadow, because actually eyeshadow is nothing more than mica. So you can use that. There are lots of different things you can use. I've seen people using nail polish, although I would imagine that would smell quite a lot. Or some people just use clear resin to finish off and protect a piece of artwork they've done. In fact, if I can take you round to the other side of my studio, let's move that out of the way. This is a piece that I made, which is Dancers in the Moonlight, and that has been resined. I made those alcohol ink dancers first, stuck them on, and then resined it afterwards. So there we go. That's basically tips and tricks for a beginner's person who wanted to start with resin. And what I would also say is just enjoy it, have some fun, make sure you're safe at all times, and just enjoy it. Thank you very much. The next part of this video will be me creating a picture. Bye. Okay, another trick is, as you can see, I've mixed up my resin and hardener, and I've given it a mix for about 3.5 minutes. Now you do have to work fairly quickly with this, because you know you have about a work time of 30 to 40 minutes depending on the temperature of your studio or where you're working, and also how much heat you use on it, because if you use a lot of heat on it, it is going to start to cure a lot quicker. But one of the tips and tricks is that I've got here is I've mixed up a big pot of it, and I will ensure that I keep some clear resin behind in this big pot after I've mixed the colours. The other thing is, when you're mixing, as you can see, there's not a great deal of bubbles in this. When you're mixing, don't lift the spatula or whatever you're using to mix out of the pot, because that will introduce air bubbles. And don't mix it really rapidly, you're not beating eggs. And the other thing is, make sure that you regularly, when you're mixing, scrape the sides to ensure that you're getting all the resin or hardener off the sides, and also scrape the bottom as well. And I do that, I do like 10 stirs, and then I go around and scrape the sides, and then scrape the bottom, then I do 10 more stirs and do the same. And I normally have a piece of music playing in the background that lasts about 3.5 minutes long. I listen to that piece of music. When it's finished, I know it's mixed, and there we go. So there's not many bubbles in it at all. Okay, the colours I'm going to be using for this are, I'm going to be using a bit of acrylic white paint, I'm going to be using some acrylic gold, acrylic black, some white mica, some black mica, and some gold, yellow gold mica in with these colours. Now the gold one is quite, the gold acrylic is quite metallic anyway, but I do like to just add a little bit more of the yellow gold to it. You don't have to, I just like it quite really bright and sparkly. I'm not adding any glitter to this one, but I will be decanting this larger pot into these smaller pots, which obviously They're free because I've eaten the pudding out of them, as you can tell by my big belly that's probably in this shot. Also, I will be keeping some in this pot, as I said. Now, going forward, I will speed this video up so that you don't have to sit and watch every process, but you'll see exactly what I'm doing. There we go, there's the finished picture. I'm really pleased with how that's came out. There are some cells in it if you get closer to it. And the colours have really worked well. I'm very pleased with how that picture's come out. And also there's the little coaster that I made from just the waste that was in the tray. Never waste anything.
Thank you for watching. I hope these tips and tricks were useful. Please like, subscribe and share this video. Bye.